Hey everybody, and welcome to another Cricut Craft tutorial. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos on Wednesdays and Saturdays with the occasional bonus live video. You'll also want to make sure you join my Facebook group linked below. We do a lot of really fun things in the group, and I love getting to know you guys. So today's video is all about screen printing. We are going to screen print with multiple colors. If you haven't seen my first screen printing video, I will link that below for you. But today we're going to show you how to do it with multiple colors, and we're going to make this really cute, festive Christmas shirt. I did 4 colors on this shirt, and it was really easy to do. So I'm going to show you guys exactly how to do this. Let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we need to do is go to our design bundles to get the design that we're going to make. And it's in this huge Christmas sign making bundle. I will link this below. It was only $2.10, so you cannot beat it. It's awesome. So we're going to click on download files, and it's going to bring up this little link for a zip file. So click on that. You may have to set up where you want your file saved to, but mine usually will just ask me, and I will save it into my Cricut folder. And we'll click save. And then this should go away. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But if it doesn't, it's fine. There it goes. And you'll see down here in the bottom that we have it downloading. Once it's downloaded, you can open it up. And because it's a zip file, we'll need to unzip it. But we're going to go in here and go to Christmas Sign Making Bundle. And we only want an SVG. And I believe this one, if I recall, was this one. You can open them. It'll open in your browser if you don't have it set up to open in Inkscape. But this is the one that we're going to use. So we want that one for sure. So what we're going to do is right up here where it says extract. Now yours could be different. Computers are different depending on which one you're using. So we're going to use extract. It's going to ask us where we want to extract it to. We're going to extract it to our Cricut folder, and that's all you got to do. So we'll go over to our design space, and we're going to click on upload. Now it's probably already uploaded in here somewhere. I don't know if you guys will see it on here, but I did upload it before. So what we'll do is click upload image. We're going to browse for it. And then we know what it was called. It was called We Wish You a Merry Christmas. So it'll be down towards the bottom in the W's. So we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and we will find what we're looking for. We got to go through all of my other like random things. That's warm winter wishes. Here it is. We wish you a Merry Christmas. So go ahead and double click that, and it's going to import it in, and you'll see that it's all set up right here. Click on save. Now this one you don't have to clean up or anything because it's already an SVG. We're going to insert our image. Now I have worked with this one, and I'm going to have to tell you guys a couple different tricks that you're going to have to do with this one because this SVG isn't set up in a way that I would have set it up personally. So a lot of times you're going to need to set them up yourself, and I'm going to show you how to do that. But we're going to make this a lot smaller so that you guys can see it better on the screen because we need to see the whole thing in order to do this. So what we have here is kind of a bit of a mess. If you look over here at the layers tab, you can see that everything is sort of discombobulated. There's things that are grouped that shouldn't be grouped. So what we're going to do first is click ungroup. And we're going to wait a second because it takes a second to load. And what you're going to do is select everything that is red. So we're going to select all the little red dots, and then we're going to make sure that we don't forget to do the little holly berries at the bottom. All I'm doing is holding Control on my keyboard and clicking down the layers tab because it's a little bit easier to do that. And what we're going to do is click on attach, and that's going to make these all in one spot. And so when you go to click make it, they're not going to be all everywhere. You're going to have them all the way they should cut. So that's perfectly fine. I'm going to hide these just so that I know that they're done. And then the next thing we're going to go ahead and do are these little leaves because these are pretty easy to pick out from the rest of it. So we'll scroll down and we'll find all the little green leaves, and we're going to attach the green leaves. The reason, again, we do this is to make sure that everything cuts within the same like way it's laid out because we don't want to have to lay it out. So I'm going to hide the green leaves. The last thing I want to do is do the gold or the yellow part. I just do the yellow ones just to get them out of the way because then when you can do the black, because there's a lot of pieces of the black, quick trick when you're going to do this one is instead of clicking on everything in the layers tab because everything else is hidden, just draw a big box around the whole thing and click attach. Now, with this one, I normally tell you not to weld, and I'm going to double check because it does look like they did weld their words. So we just always want to make sure that they have welded their words, and they have. They're all one piece. So we're good there. So let's go ahead and bring our registration marks in. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to make sure that we can see every piece again. So we're just going to click it, get rid of the little eye. So what you do is just click on the eye right where it says attach, and we have all of our pieces back. So now what we need to do is make a little shape, and we're going to just use a little rectangle. We're not going to do anything too crazy, and we'll resize the whole design before we cut it, so don't worry. So we're going to just make a rectangle, and you do want to make it kind of big, but you don't have to go too big. And I'm going to put it right here because I think this is probably a good spot where I'm not going to end up with a ton of issues with it, meaning like I'm not going to have to worry about covering any of my words. So I'm going to attach these two bad boys. So I'm just going to hold control and click them both. And the reason I'm going to attach them is so that they stay exactly where they're at and I don't have to like move them. And then what I want to do is duplicate this. And you're going to want to duplicate it for every color you have. So you have 4 colors, so you need 4 total squares. So we have 1. So there's 2, 3, and 4. Now what we want to do is we're going to take each of these, and before we do anything else with them, I'm going to hold control and click on where it says attach, and we're going to align them, and this is just so that it makes it easier when we go to change the colors and we don't have to worry about moving them. So we'll click align, and what you want to do is you want to align them center, and you can totally just move all of them at once. I don't always line them up right away, so we can put them where we want them. Perfect. Now what you need to do is choose 2 of your squares and change them to one color of your design. And we'll change the colors of the squares really quick before we do any attaching. So there's our gold squares. We're going to do a set of the green squares. And the nice thing is this brings up the material color right away, so you can easily make sure that you're putting your correct colors together and not using like a random color that just looks like it sort of matches. So now what we need to do is take our color squares and attach them to the black or the red or the green or the yellow of our design, because we want to make sure that our squares are going to cut with that design. So click attach, and it's going to make everything for the black go together. And then you're going to want to do that for your green. So find your green and your green, click attach. Your gold and your gold is going to attach. And then last but not least, you're going to do your red and your red, and you'll attach. So now when we go to click make it, it will have these boxes, but we'll resize it real quick just so we don't forget to. So we're going to do this probably about, let's see, we can make this pretty big on this shirt. So we'll do pretty big. I think we can go just a twinge bigger. You got to keep in mind the size of your screen as well. My screen's pretty large, so I should have no problem doing a bigger design. So we'll do it this big. Now what we're going to do is click on make it. We are going to want to do this just like we do iron on, because we're going to put this on the back of our screen. So make sure that you mirror it. So we're going to mirror everything first, and then I'll show you guys all the registration marks really quick. Okay, so now you'll see that each of our designs has registration marks on it. Now they're not going to line up completely on our mat because of where we are cutting. So one thing I want to make sure you guys know, with these registration marks, these are really close to the edge of your vinyl. You may want to give yourself a little bit more space around your edges, especially for your design. So you'll want to move those on your mat, and you can just grab them. You just click on them and you just drag them, and you can move them around to give yourself a little bit more of a border. Now we're just going to cut this on regular 651 vinyl, so we will get that all cut out, and I will show you guys how we're going to screen print with multiple colors. So this is our first transfer that's going to go on to our screen print. So this is our screen here. And we're actually going to do this a little bit differently. After some tips from some people who screen print a lot, we're actually going to put this on the opposite side of the screen. So this is the top where you kind of have a lip, and then the bottom is the kind of more flush with the frame side. So I put this sticky side up, and I'm gonna just place my frame down on top of it. And I may actually go this direction with this one, because this design's a little bit more wide than it is long. So we will do it this way. It doesn't matter necessarily which way you use your frame, just so long as you have it. And this way it's going to be pretty easy to lay it down, which is really nice because I laid this sticky side up. I'm just going to take my squeegee and just press down just a little bit. I'm not going to go too crazy with it. It should stick pretty well to the screen. But if not, we will work it out. And we're going to flip it over so that we can peel the transfer tape off, because we need to have this open in order to get the screen print ink on here. Now, as I showed you, there's a couple layers to this. There's actually 4 total colors that we're going to do today. And we're going to start with the topmost, meaning the one that is the highest on the design. So the star is the tip top of our design. And I wanted to start with that one because I wanted to be able to line up everything with the top, because I always want to have the top of my design on a shirt, especially about 2 inches to 3 inches below the neck. So this way I figured this would be just a little bit easier to lay that way. And you will have to work a little bit at your transfer tape. I did use a medium tack transfer tape and it works really well, but you do want to just go a little bit slowly. And because this is such a solid piece of vinyl, we may need to kind of help it along a little bit. So we want to make sure that we don't have any bubbles. And really the only bubbles, and I totally just knocked my squeegee off, the only bubbles I'm super concerned about are going to be the ones that are on the edges of our holes. So you just want to make sure that as you're pulling, and you don't want to push too hard on your screen, you want to be kind of careful about that, because you don't want to rip or pull your screen too much. But we're just going to gently pull, and you could use a lighter tack transfer tape, and I think for the next one I'm going to just try to reuse this piece. So I'm going to try not to ruin this piece, because the lighter the tack of it, the easier it'll be to pull off the vinyl. And since these are pretty solid pieces of vinyl, you're not going to have a lot of like really little spots, except for in those letters, which we'll work with when we get to. That will likely be layer number 2. I believe red will, sorry, that was probably really loud. Red will probably be, I know this is so loud. Red will probably be the last layer that we do, just based on the way I want it to lay and the ease of getting it to lay exactly the way we want it to. So again, we're just pulling our transfer tape off. We're not doing anything crazy. Like, this is super easy to do. It's just a matter of getting it stuck down to your screen and making sure that your registration marks are in place. So we're going to pull this off. And like I said, I'm going to try to save this piece of transfer tape. So I'm going to try not to let it stick to itself. And I'm going to actually put it right on the side of my desk. And hopefully that will work. So what I'm going to do now is just go along the edges, especially along our holes, like our registration marks and our star and our bell. Okay, looks like we've got all the bubbles out. So that looks pretty good. Okay, so let's get our shirt, and we're gonna just do this on just a regular, this is a next level baseball style shirt. I do have some cardstock inside the shirt to help with any kind of possible bleeding. And I'm gonna hopefully, I'll move this down a little bit so you guys can see it better. But I'm gonna get it laid out a little bit. And you just wanna make sure that you don't have any like wrinkles under it that'll hold up your screen too much. And then I'll go back under and I'll move my cardstock because it's shifted obviously when I had the shirt kind of laying to the side. So I'm gonna move my cardstock over, and this is a pretty big piece of cardstock, so it should be just fine to cover any possible bleed, but usually don't have to worry about bleed too much with this, so it's not bad. But this is a bit of a thinner style shirt. So now what we need to do is lay our design down, and I'm going to put a little bit of painter's tape down. So the painter's tape is to keep any paint bleed from happening, and I know that I have it cut really close over here on this edge. I didn't quite measure very well when I did this, so I want to make sure that I got a good cover over here, but I'm not covering up my registration mark. You can see I'm putting just a little bit of tape right here, and then I'm going to run some tape along the edge over here. This edge I'm not too worried about. I'll be able to stay away from that enough that I shouldn't have to worry. And this is super wide tape. It was all I could find today. I don't know where my other tape is, so I'm just going to use it. It's no big deal. You don't have to use really wide tape. You can find the thinner stuff. I just couldn't find mine, so it's what it is. But you can always trim it in half. So now what we need to do is find about where we want our star to sit. So like I said, you go about 2 to 3 finger lengths down which it's a little bit tough when you have a frame around it. So you can kind of play with it a little bit, see what looks good, and then we're gonna try to center it, which again, not always super easy, but you just play with it a little bit, see if you can kind of, and this one throws you off too because the tag isn't like 100% centered, and actually I think part of it could be my fold too, so I'm just gonna kind of recheck that, recheck my fold. The arms help a lot with centering too on these, so it's really nice. I think that looks pretty centered. It's probably good enough. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So I did try to cut my vinyl to match what color paint I'm gonna use. So this one is yellow, so we're using yellow. We'll use white for the words. We're gonna use green for the leaves, and then we will use red for the little berries. These registration marks, we obviously don't want them on the shirt itself. So what I've done is cut some cardstock, and it's a little big, so we can just totally rip it down. It doesn't matter. These don't need to be like big or nice or anything. You can literally just like rip them into like pieces. And what we're gonna do with that is we're going to take them, and I'm gonna place them right under the registration marks, and you wanna make sure that you can't see, and this is really nice too because I don't know how well you guys can see it on camera, but with using the yellow first, it's really going to help us because you want to make sure that you just have enough of the registration mark covered so that you don't end up with any of your screen print under the paper. So like you don't want to see it through your design. So I like to just try to put these just as close to the edge of the registration mark as I can, and that helps me to keep it from getting on the design because the registration marks are a little bit tight on a few pieces of our design, so it's fine. We just need to be a little careful. So we'll just do that. And like I said, I really liked this yellow, doing the yellow first. It really worked out nicely. Did not plan that. So now you want to take a piece of painter's tape, and I'm just going to take this big piece here and rip a couple chunks off of it, and we're going to tape down each of the pages, or the pieces of paper. And again, you want to make sure your painter's tape isn't under your design at all, and you want to make sure that you didn't move your design too much. I moved it a little bit, but it's okay. I'll just realign it, no big deal. But we're gonna make sure that we have these taped down. And you can use bigger pieces if you want. I just kind of ripped them into shreds just so I had a small piece. But you wanna make sure, again, that you don't have them under your design. And I think I slid that one too much. Okay. So let me just recenter this guy just to make sure he's where I want him. I think he looks pretty good. I think we look fairly centered. It's so hard to tell. Centering for me is always a struggle. Okay, I think we look pretty centered. So I couldn't find a spoon, and usually I use a spoon, but I'm gonna use this little measuring cup because it's all I could find up here. And I'm just gonna take some of the ink, and I'm just gonna dab it kind of along the top, and you just have to dab a bit. And because I've got these little registration marks down here, I'm going to put a little bit down here just to get these registration marks, and then I'm just going to put a little bit above the bell. Since this is kind of a spread out design, I'm fine with like not putting it all the way down the design. It's totally fine. I'm sure like people at screen print all the time are going to be like, oh my god, I can't believe you're doing that, but you know, I'm not a screen printer, folks. I'm just doing it for fun, and this would be just more of like a hobby style, so it's fine. So you take your squeegee, and just like in the other video, you're just going to pull your ink down. And you want to make sure that you get your registration marks and all the way down to the base of the bell. And I just want to make sure that I have plenty of ink because the yellow is a little bit tough. So I might put a little bit more ink where the bell was because I feel like he's not covered up really well. I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'm going to put a little bit more ink right where that bell is because he's kind of light colored. So we'll just put a little more ink. And you can totally do that. If you think that you didn't get a spot real well, just add a little ink. It's totally fine. Again, I'm sure real screen printers are like, oh my god, I can't believe you didn't put enough ink. It's fine, guys. Really. The world will not end because I'm not doing exactly what a real screen printer does. It's fine. I will say I did get some good tips from people that do screen print, and some of those tips were not to pull upwards, which is a great tip. Some other ones were to put the vinyl on the back, which makes like a lot of sense. So A+ to you guys for that one, because I would have not thought of that. And I really liked the tip about making sure you keep all the extra ink, because look at that. Like, you barely use any ink to do these. So now what we need to do is we're going to set all this stuff aside. We need to wash everything, including the screen. But we need to lift up the screen, and you're going to do this really carefully, and you'll need to make sure that you leave your shirt sitting so that it can dry. So you want to put it somewhere that it's not going to be touched or messed with. And then you can see there's our first little section. So now we're ready to do the green. We've lined up our registration marks. And again, you're just going to take a spoon or whatever you have and just dab it across. And you want to make sure you get some above where the registration marks are, because you want to make sure that you do drag your paint across that. And whatever paint you use and you have left over, you can absolutely always put it right back into your jar. So don't worry too much if you put a ton of paint down, because it's totally fine. So just like we did the first one, you're going to hold it down. You're going to take your squeegee and you're going to pull it straight down. And I see I didn't get my registration mark on that side, so I want to make sure I get that guy. And I'm going to make sure I get this one. And then we're just going to pull it straight down and make sure we get enough paint. And see, I have a ton of paint left over, so all I'm going to do is just scrape it right back into my jar. All I do is just take my scraper and just scrape it along the edge. You can do a ton of like screen printing with one jar of the paint, so don't worry if you have a lot to do, because you can do these pretty inexpensive. Now, I didn't put any painter's tape to protect this one because I figured we weren't going to get too close to the edges on this one, unlike some of the others where we have a little bit smaller design on them. So once you've got that and you're satisfied with your paint coverage, just like before, you just gently lift it up, and there is your greenery. So the stencil on this one might be just a little bit hard for you guys to see because it's the blue one, which is going to be our white paint. So again, just like with all of our others. Now this one I'm going to stir just a little bit because it's kind of cold in our house, so I think it's thickening up my paint a little bit. So we're going to go ahead, and just like we did with all the others, there's really no difference to how you do these. You just put the paint, and see what I mean by it being kind of thick? It's not typically quite this thick, and it's okay if you kind of have it splooged across your design, totally fine. I'm going to put just a little bit down here just to make sure, again, that I get the registration marks. I don't want to miss those. And I did put painter's tape along this one just due to the fact that we had some open space, and I just wanted to make sure because this is a pretty big design. So again, and you're going to use even pressure. You're just going to pull it down and pull it down, and I want to make sure I get over the registration marks. And I'm probably going to add a little bit more paint because I'm not quite getting this part right here. And what you can do is either tap it off, see if it'll come off, and if it doesn't, because like I said, this is kind of thick, I'm going to add just a little bit of paint down here. And we're going to just pull it down to make sure that we're going to cover everything with a nice, and the white, I always want to make sure that I've got a nice, fairly thickish layer on there. And again, thank you to the people who do this all the time and gave me some great pointers to always just pull down and not to pull up, which is an awesome tip. So thank you for that, guys. I did pull up in my last video. I luckily had no issues pulling up, but you can. So just be aware of that. And then I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, always scrape the last of my paint back into my tub because you can absolutely save all of that paint because you really don't use a lot. We're just going to carefully lift, and I like to just do it real slow, and there we go. This is going to be the last layer, so I'm going to do some painter's tape on this one again, just so you guys can see really quick how I do it. With this one, I'm not going to worry too much about covering the registration marks, because we don't really need to worry about, we want to line them up, but you don't need to worry about getting your paint in them because this is your last layer, so it won't matter if you paint them or not because we don't need to line up anything else. This is just simple little dots. It's a little hard to see on camera, I know. So see, on this one, I don't really care. I'm just going to cover that up just to be sure that I don't get any paint on the shirt where I don't want it. So I'm not really worried about those because we've already lined it up. And as long as you're careful and don't wiggle it around too much, you should be fine. And we're going to use the red paint for this one. And for this one, again, I'm not going to worry about those registration marks. So I'm going to just take my paint and I'm going to just glob it down here, and it's okay that it's under the registration marks. I'm not super worried about those because we don't really need to worry about them. And I'm going to put just a little bit above the hollies just to cover it and make sure that everything is good to go. Take a scraper just like all your other times you've done this, and you're going to pull downward, and you're just going to very carefully cover all of your dots, and you want to make sure you cover your holly berries as well. I'm going to take and scrape off some of this excess paint because I want to make sure that I don't get it under the painter's tape. I did feel a little lift on my painter's tape, so I'm just going to scrape that away from it. And then I just want to make sure that I get this bottom section of berries covered really nicely and with a good layer of paint. I think that looks pretty good. Since these are kind of small, I just want to make sure that I have a good coverage. And it didn't take, again, barely any paint, so we're going to go ahead and scrape the little bit extra that we have left over back into our jar. And then you're just going to, just like every other layer, this is really a pretty simple process. You're just going to lift up your paint or your screen, set that off to the side, and our project is done, especially once we let it dry. And then I'm going to show you guys how we're going to heat this to heat set it. This came out really, really cute. You can see, although the registration marks aren't perfect, they're really close, and with a design like this, you really don't have to be 100% perfect. But if you want to make sure that you're going to be really, really perfect, I would suggest using painter's tape rather than cardstock and making sure that nothing's going to knock your shirt off of your table. So let's let this dry for a while. I'm going to go clean off my screen, which I just do by rinsing it with some warm water, and then we are going to heat press this. I apologize for the awful lighting over here, but the last thing that you need to do when you screen print a shirt is to heat set it. So you can do this with your home iron, but I have a heat press, so we'll just use that. And all we're going to do is just use about a medium pressure. You don't have to be too firm with it. And you are going to put your heat press at 340, and you're going to do it for about 30 seconds. That just presses in your ink, and it does what's called a heat set. That is so that your ink will become permanent, so when you wash it, your ink won't come off. So we're going to let this finish counting down, and then it will be all finished, and you can wear your shirt and wear it with pride, and that you made it and you screen printed it yourself. And here is our finished shirt. This is actually after have been washed 3 times, so this gives you a good idea of how well that screen printing holds up. It holds up really, really well. The green kind of blended into that dark gray, but I think it looks really good, and the lighting, when you're out in the sun, it looks really awesome. If you guys have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon because that will alert you to when I post a new video. And be sure to join my Facebook group down below because we are going to have some really exciting things coming that are just going to be exclusive for my members. I hope you all had a wonderful time. Have a great day and happy crafting.